Hi everyone, I'm Hextasy, and a while back I did a Nuzlocke using only short kings, Pokemon under 3 feet tall. But what if I wanted to be the short king? Now, I'm about 5'8", but I lied at the DMV and officially I'm 5'9". But with shoes on, I can bump that up to 5'10", and depending on how I wear my hair up, I could be 5'11". And just because I feel like it, we're going to add one more inch. I am an even 6 feet tall. So if I want to be the short king, then all of my Pokemon need to be over 6 feet tall, and Sword is the perfect game to Nuzlocke for this. First things first, we need to grab our starter, and if you look closely, you can see that none of them are over 6 feet tall. So we'll just grab the one who evolves into the tallest form, and that would be Grookey, who we named Denali. We slap our rival, and then at Route 1, we catch Rainier the Rookidee, and they take a turn at destroying Hop before we reach the wild area where we can catch the only Pokemon we can actually use for now, Shasta the Onix. We have to do quite a bit of training because our rival Sobble can destroy us in a single attack, so we level until we learn Curse to boost our attack, and then use Rock Polish to boost our speed before we sweep his team. We can then head to Route 3 where we grab Monarchia the Mudbray, and in Galar Mine number 1, we find Krakatoa the Roly-Coly. Neither of them we'll be able to use for a while. We have our first fight with Bede, but Shasta does to him what she did to Hop, and we can move on to Route 4. Now, Onix stands absolutely no chance against the first or second gym leaders, but here we can find this run's saving grace, a Magikarp named K2, who is quickly evolved into a Gyarados, and by spamming Ice Fang, we can beat the first gym leader quite easily. We head back to the wild area, where we catch Whitney the Dreepy in the rolling fields, who we can use for a grand total of 2 battles this run. And then heading to Route 5, we find Lotz the Stuffle and a bike. Being able to get around the wild area faster, we're able to farm up Watts and talk to the digging duo. After an hour of farming for items, we finally get the Metal Coat and evolve Shasta into a Steelix off-screen. We get to show off our new Steelix to Hop, and not expecting anything surprising to happen, we don't even turn battle animations on, and well, that was almost very unfortunate, but Gyarados is there to switch in and finish the fight. With that, we arrive at Hulbury, where we get our next Pokemon, Manaslu the Wishy-Washy. In its solo form, it's only about 8 inches tall, but while it's above 25% HP, it enters its schooling form, which clocks in at nearly 27 feet. So as long as it remains in this form, I figure they're fair game. And now it's time to take on the second gym leader, Nessa. She starts with her Goldeen, and we bring out K2, who takes it out with a couple crunches. Arrokuda comes in next, so we switch to Shasta on a bite, who then handles a Whirlpool before taking out Arrokuda with a Thunder Fang. And in comes her last Pokemon, a Dreadnought. We swap to K2 to get the Intimidate attack drop as she Dynamaxes and lands a Max Geyser. I should mention now that while Dynamaxing turns any Pokemon into Tall Kings, we won't be using it for this run. We swap back to Shasta on a Max Strike, then back to K2 on another Max Geyser, further lowering their attack. Dreadnought shrinks back to normal, and we can go on the offensive now. We bring out Manaslu, and a few Scalds takes the KO to win us our second badge. Galar Mine number 2 is our next stop, and K2 destroys Bede's team before we catch a few more Pokemon that are too short to ride with us for now. Pike's the Binnacle in the mines, Nistrom the Hatena at the Modestoke outskirts, Everest the Duskull at the Watchtower ruins, and after slapping Marnie, we catch Vesuvius the Sizzlipede at the Modestoke gym before we take on Kabu, the third gym leader. Despite him being a fire trainer, we open with the steel-type Shasta to take on his Ninetales. It goes for a Will-O-Wisp, but misses and an Earthquake takes it out. Arcanine is in next, and its Intimidate drops our attack, and then it lands a Will-O-Wisp to burn us and lower our attack further. But Shasta was given the Rostberry to heal the burn, and an Earthquake leaves Arcanine in poor shape. It lands a second Will-O-Wisp, but Earthquake takes it out anyways, and all that's left is Scorch. We switch to K2 as they Gigantamax, and it proceeds to do not much damage from its G-Max Centiferno. A couple of Waterfalls takes it out, and that's another badge in the bag. We then catch Meru the Rhyhorn at the Motostoke Riverbank, and thanks to the Digging Duo, we have plenty of fossils to revive at Route 6, and we choose to get a Dracovish, who we name Erebus. Hop tries to fight us again, but Monoslew and K2 put an end to him pretty quickly, and since the level cap is now 36, we can evolve quite a few of our Pokemon into Tall Kings. Monarchia evolves into a Mudstale, but I accidentally cut the recording short. Denali evolves into a Rillaboom, and Vesuvius into a Scorch. And something looks a little bit off about them. Holy smokes, they were shiny and I didn't even notice it when I caught them. Anyways, we can go on to the 4th Gym Leader, B. But K2 is able to set up Dragon Dance after Dragon Dance on her lead Hitmontop to boost our attack, and then we proceed to one-shot her entire team. And then we can watch Vesuvius do the exact same thing to Bede's team right after. We then catch Olympus Mons the Golett at the Stony Wilderness, and evolve Rainier into a Corviknight before we make our way through the Glimwood Tangle, where there are no new encounters. And this lands us at Balanlia, home of the 5th Gym Leader, Opal. But just like B, she watches us set up on her while doing diddly squat to stop us, and Shasta sweeps her team. Hop challenges us to another fight, but we have counters for his entire team, and it's not long before we can move on to Route 8, where we find Lila the Sandaconda. Then back at the Dusty Bowl, we meet Matterhorn the Snover, and we can evolve Everest into a Dusclops and further into a Dusknoir off-screen. Nistrum into a Hatterene, Lots into a Beware, Krakatoa into Colossal, Meru into Rhydon, and Pikes into a Barbaracle, who we find out is actually a manlet. I could have sworn this thing was 7 feet tall or something, but I guess not. So we head back to Galar Mine number 2 to catch an actual Tall King, a Wimpod who will take over the mantle of Pikes as we cast the original Pikes into the Abyss. And now with our team purged of the undersized, we can take on the 6th Gym Leader, Gordy. He starts with a diminutive Barbaracle, and we bring out Denali, who takes it out with a single drum beating. Shuckle is in next, and it takes a few drum beatings, but it eventually goes down as well. And next in is Stonejourner, who uses Magic Room, switching their amazing defense stat with their pathetic special defense, so a drum beating takes them out as well, and all that's left is Colossal. We switch to Meru, who will not be evolving because even worse than being a manlet, Rhyperior is incredibly ugly and I don't want them on my team. Anyways, we're hit by a Max Flare for decent damage, and then we can land a high horsepower to bring them low before finishing them off with a crunch to win another badge. Hop fights us again and gets destroyed again, and then we can head to Route 9 where we find Bounty the Delmise, and then we can head to the Giant's Mirror where we meet Avalanche the Cubchoo. And we take this time to evolve the remainder of our Pokemon that aren't a Dreepy. Matterhorn evolves to a Abomasnow, Avalanche to a Beartic, Pikes to a Golisopod, and Olympus Mons into a Golurk. Marnie challenges us to another fight, and besides us using Psychic on a Dark type for some reason, nothing of note happens. So it's right on to Piers, the 7th Gym Leader. He starts with a Scrafty, and we bring out Nistrum, who has to tank a Fake Out in Payback before landing Dazzling Gleam for the one-hit KO. Next in is Gene Simmons, so we swap to Shasta on a Shadow Claw, which hardly hurts us. We hit an Earthquake for decent damage before they use Counter, which puts Shasta in a bad spot. So we switch to Lots on an Obstruct, and then they use a Throat Chop for nearly no damage, and we land a Superpower to score the KO. Next in is Malamar, so we switch to Pikes on a Psycho Cut, and then get outsped, and Malamar uses Foul Play, scoring a critical hit and nearly taking out Pikes. His emergency exit ability activates and automatically switches them out for Vesuvius, who can then land a Leech Life for the KO. Skuntank comes in next, and almost all the damage they deal is healed back by Leech Life, and they quickly go down to win us the 7th badge. We can move right on to Raihan, the 8th gym leader next, and he starts with a Gigalith and Flygon, while we bring out K2 and Shasta. Flygon moves first and lands a Thunder Punch on K2, but thanks to our Intimidate ability dropping their attack, K2 survives handily and retaliates with an Ice Fang for the one-hit KO. Shasta hits Gigalith with an Earthquake, not quite taking out half of its HP, and Gigalith retaliates with a Body Press, which doesn't do much to Shasta, who is an absolute defensive monster. Sandaconda comes in next, so we're going to swap K2 out for Everest the Dusknoir, who is immediately paralyzed by Glare, and then Shasta can take out Gigalith with a Body Press. And in comes Raihan's final Pokemon, his Gigantamax Duraludon. It lands a Max Knuckle on Shasta, not doing a lot of damage, but then Sandaconda follows up with an Earth Power, which nearly ends Shasta. But they can then land a Body Press to take out close of half of Duraludon's HP, before it gets burnt by a Will-O-Wisp from Everest. We switch Shasta out for K2 to lower Duraludon's attack further as Sandaconda uses Protect. They hit K2 with a weak Max Knuckle, and Everest's attack on Sandaconda gets blocked. We then switch K2 out for Olympus Mons, who's hit by a Max Rockfall and a Glare on the switch, but this gives Everest the opportunity to land a Will-O-Wisp on Sandaconda to burn them. Duraludon returns to normal, and they hit Olympus Mons with a Breaking Swipe and Earth Power, but they tough it out and then power through Paralysis to take out Duraludon with a high horsepower. Just to be safe, we swap out Olympus Mons for Monarchia, who can then take out Sandaconda with a Heavy Slam to win us our final gym badge. Before entering the endgame, we're going to catch the last couple Pokemon of this run. Massive the Jellicent at North Lake Millock, and Mana the Lapras at West Lake Oxew. We arrive at Winden, where we'll be taking on the Champion Cup, starting with Marnie. She starts with her Liepard, and we bring out Vesuvius, who beats Liepard with a single Leech Life. Scrafty comes in next, and it takes a couple Leech Lives, but they go down too. And now Toxicroak is in. We switch to Shasta on a Toxic, which they're immune to. Then we're hit by a Swagger, confusing us, but doubling our attack. Shasta powers through Confusion and lands a Psychic Fangs to take out Toxicroak. And Morpeko comes in next. It hits us with a Bite for little damage before an Earthquake destroys them, and all that's left is Gigantamax Grimmsnarl. They land a G-Max Snooze, causing Shasta to become drowsy, then they hurt themselves in Confusion. They land another G-Max Snooze, and then we land an Earthquake to take out more than half of their HP before Shasta falls asleep. We switch to K2 on another G-Max Snooze, and Grimmsnarl shrinks down before being taken out by a Waterfall to win us the fight. Next, we're up against Hop, who starts with his Dubwool, and we bring out Everest. Dubwool can't do much to hurt us here, and Everest can burn Dubwool before slowly chipping away at them. This causes Hop to use his healing items, but that doesn't stop Everest from beating them. Snorlax comes in next, and they get burned before landing a weak high horsepower. We then switch to Monarchia, who is hit for nearly nothing by a Heavy Slam, and then we can land a Low Kick that just misses the KO, but after landing a Hammer Arm, Snorlax succumbs to their burn. Corviknight comes in next, and we trade blows back and forth for a bit, but decide to play it safe and switch to Shasta, who quickly takes out Corviknight with the Body Press. Pincurchin comes in just to get destroyed by an Earthquake, so Hop is down to just his Inteleon. We switch to Erebus as they Gigantamax, expecting them to use a Water-type move, but they use Max Quake, which takes out about a fourth of our HP. Another Max Quake brings us below half HP, but we can then land a Leech Life to restore a respectable amount of HP. One more trade and Inteleon shrinks back down while we're both at half HP. They land a Dark Pulse that causes us to flinch, and then lands another to bring us to just 18 HP before we land a Leech Life to bring us back up to 43 HP. Remember what I said about playing it safe? Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We keep Erebus in, and they're hit by a Dark Pulse that they barely survive, and one more Leech Life wins us the fight. Afterwards, we're up against Oleana, who starts with a Frostlass, while we bring out Vesuvius. Frostlass lands a Hex before being destroyed by a Flame Wheel, and in comes Milotic. We switch to Bounty, and a couple Giga Drains takes them out, and next in is Salazzle. We're expecting them to use a Fire-type move here, so we switch to Vesuvius, who's immune, but they go for a Poison Gas. I figured we should be able to survive one attack anyways, and we'll be able to land a Scald afterwards. But Salazzle scores a critical hit with Venoshock to take down Vesuvius. I never expected this to be a deathless run, since my go-to strategy for facing Eternatus is to sacrifice a bunch of underleveled Pokemon to it, but Vesuvius wasn't one I was planning on losing. Anyways, we bring out Olympus Mons, who gets poisoned before taking revenge with a high horsepower. Serena is in next, so we switch to Bounty on a Dropkick, and then we're hit hard by an Acrobatics that nearly takes us out, and we land an Anchor Shot for decent damage, but we gotta swap out now. We bring in Shasta, and they don't take much damage from Acrobatics and a couple Dropkicks before we're able to take out Serena with a Heavy Slam. And finally, we have to deal with her Gigantamax Garbodor. She lands a Max Quake before being hit hard by an Earthquake, losing close to half of her HP before her ability drops her defense to raise her speed. We survive one more Max Quake and go for another Earthquake, but it just barely isn't enough to KO, so we switch to Everest, who survives a Max Quake, and Garbodor shrinks back to normal. They then use Toxic Spikes for some reason, and Everest lands a Fire Punch to earn the win. Next up is our final fight with Bede, and after watching Shasta plow through his first 3 Pokemon, he brings out his Gigantamax Hatterene, which goes for a Max Flare, but we switch to Everest, who loses close to half of their HP. I doubt they'd survive another attack, so we switch back to Shasta, who tanks a Max Mindstorm, and then we bring out Monarchia, who takes out quite a bit of damage from a Max Flare, and Hatterene shrinks back to normal, so we swap out to Pikes on a Dazzling Gleam, which brings them below half HP and allows us to safely bring in Olympus Mons, who can then take out Hatterene with a single Phantom Force. Wow. That is 4 Pokemon taking quite a beating just to take out some giant butt plug looking fairy. Anyways, afterwards we have our second fight with Nessa, who starts with a Golisopod against Rainier. We immediately go for a Brave Bird and just miss the KO, so Emergency Exit forces them to switch out to Barraskewda. They outspeed and land a Liquidation to bring us to around half HP before we land a Brave Bird, which both Pokemon barely survive. We switch to Matterhorn on a Liquidation, and then they need to tank a Throat Chop before taking out Barraskewda with an Energy Ball. Seeking is in next, but we outspeed and land a critical hit Energy Ball for the KO. Golisopod is back in, so we switch to Everest on a First Impression, and expecting her to heal, we use Will-O-Wisp, but instead they go for a Shadow Claw, which brings Everest to about 2/3 of their HP before they go down to chip damage. Pelipper is in next, and they're able to set up a Tailwind before being hit by a Thunder Punch for the one-hit KO. And finally, we need to deal with her Gigantamax Dreadnought. We tank a Max Darkness, bringing Everest low, but we're able to land a Will-O-Wisp to burn them. We can then switch to Bounty, who is able to survive back-to-back Max Darknesses, and a Giga Drain takes out Dreadnought to win the fight. Next up is our rematch with B, and would you look at that, we've already won. I dunk on Hop a lot, but I think B might be the easiest opponent in this game. Between her being completely unprepared to take on ghosts, and her just spamming moves with no effect when she has moves that at least make some progress towards beating us, she really isn't worth talking about. So we move right on to our rematch with Raihan. He starts with a Drought Torkoal that brings the sun, and we bring out Mana the Lapras, who can use Rain Dance before Torkoal attempts a Solar Beam. So now they're stuck charging it up, and a Hydro Pump takes them out. Next in is Goodra, so we switch between Mana and Olympus Mons, baiting out attacks that the other is immune to until the rain subsides. Goodra then decides to set up the rain again, and Olympus Mons can punch Goodra in its stupid face, and thanks to its Choice Band and the Iron Fist ability, Goodra has no chance of survival. Flygon comes in next, and it also tries to change the weather and gets punched in the face as a result. Next up is Turtonator, and it doesn't get the opportunity to change the weather because Olympus Mons lands an Ice Punch that freezes them. We can then land one more Ice Punch, leaving them just barely hanging on, but then they go down to the Sandstorm that Flygon had set up. This was never a 6v5 fight, it was really a 7v4 all along, and the 6'7" Flygon was fighting for Team Tall Kings all along. But now we just have to deal with Raihan's final Pokemon, a Gigantamax Duraludon. I think Raihan in this fight is also a joke, but Duraludon isn't something to laugh at. It nearly takes out Olympus Mons with a critical hit G-Max depletion, before only losing about a fourth of its HP to our Ice Punch. We bring out Shasta, who's hardly hurt by a G-Max depletion, and then we can swap to Massive, who is immune to the incoming Max Knuckle. Duraludon shrinks back down, and then hits us decently hard with a Dragon Claw, only for our Cursed Body ability to disable it. And then we miss our Will-O-Wisp. They land a critical hit Stone Edge to bring us low, and we land our Will-O-Wisp to burn it, and then we can switch to Lots. Frick, how do I say that? We then switch to Lots, who hardly takes any damage from their attacks, and then we can land a superpower to take the win. I'm naming all my Pokemon after mountains, and I have no idea if I'm saying that one right. Okay, I just looked it up, I had it wrong all along. It's Lotse. Anyways, after this, we'll be fighting Chairman Rose. He has his Escavalier out first, and we bring in Olympus Mons, who can take it out with a single Fire Punch. Ferrothorn is in next, but suffers the same fate, and Berserker comes out next. It barely survives a Fire Punch, and we barely survive a Throat Chop, so we'll have to switch out. We bring in Lotse, who is hardly damaged, and then a Body Slam takes out Berserker. Kling Klang comes in next, and it hits us with a Wild Charge before going down to a Superpower, and all that's left is Copperajah. We switch to Shasta as they Gigantamax and land a Max Mindstorm for little damage. We then bring out K2 to dodge the incoming Max Quake and lower their attack. We land a Waterfall, but it doesn't do much, and a Max Mindstorm does quite a bit of damage, so we'll want to swap out here as Copperajah returns to normal. Mauna Kea comes in, surviving a Zen Headbutt before taking out Copperajah with an Earthquake to win us the fight. Right after this is the Eternatus fight, and we'll be starting with the specially defensive Massive. We land a couple Ice Beams before I start to worry that a crit could take them out, so we then switch to Avalanche, who was immediately destroyed for being 23 levels under Eternatus. But this gives us a safe switch into Shasta. Eternatus goes for the ineffectual Cross Poison before being destroyed by an Earthquake. For the raid battle portion of the fight, I was ready to sacrifice more Pokemon, but Eternatus was more focused on ruining Hop's day, and we get through the battle without taking any damage. Amazing. But now, all that's left is to take on the champion Leon, and for this, we'll be bringing in Olympus Mons the Golurk, K2 the Gyarados, Massive the Jellicent, Bounty the Delmise, Everest the Dusknoir, and for our final Pokemon, we finally evolved Whitney the Dreepy all the way into a Dragapult, and we're ready to take on the champ with our Ghost Mono Team plus Gyarados. He starts with Aegislash, and we bring out Olympus Mons, who gets their first Earthquake blocked by a King's Shield, but the second is a one-hit KO. Seismitoad is in next, so we switch to Bounty on a Liquidation, which hardly hurts us. They then land an Earthquake to bring us close to half HP, but we can then use a Giga Drain for the one-hit KO that brings us back up to full HP. Cinderace comes in next, and it goes for a Pyro Ball, which misses, and we land a Shadow Ball to take out half of its HP. A second Pyro Ball lands, and it's a one-hit KO. So we bring out Everest, who loses about a third of their HP to an Acrobatics before going for a Shadow Punch that just misses the KO. So we have to suffer through one more Acrobatics before taking the KO, and next in is Leon's Dragapult. They outspeed, and Shadow Ball takes out Everest, so we bring out Whitney, our own Dragapult. We move first, and a Dragon Darts is able to score the KO, and Leon brings in Haxorus next. But once again, we outspeed, and Dragon Darts takes them out as well. And our final challenge for the run is Leon's Gigantamax Charizard. We land a Dragon Darts to take out about a third of their HP, and then we're hit by a Max Rockfall that leaves us at just over half HP. We use Scald to see if it does any better damage, and it really doesn't. And we're hit by a Max Wildfire, which takes out Whitney. We bring Olympus Mons back in, and they're hit by a Max Overgrowth, and they survive with just 14 HP. We then land a Thunder Punch to score the takedown on Charizard, not only winning us the fight, but also the run. Well, now that we've beaten Sword with Tall Kings, comment more suggestions for Nuzlocke. I'm kinda running out of ideas. And pretty soon I'll have to do a run using only Pokemon that would work at Walmart or something. Anyways, I've been Hextasy, and thanks for watching.